EP277. Just Adam and I today. We have a lot to get through, sir. 2 games to cover: Ipswich away and Manchester United away. 5 goals scored, 1 goal conceded, 3 wins on the bounce. We've got to be feeling pretty happy today, aren't we?
When we looked at this fixtures after the run that we've had, I think we all pretty much said we want to win these, all of them, ideally. But I think with Ipswich, Man United and Everton, we talked about saying at least 7 points. We've got 6 already. So, I mean, this couldn't have gone better, right? We've played 3 games. We scored, including Norwich. I know we talked after Norwich. We scored, 9 goals and conceded 1, and that 1 was a penalty?
Yep.
Yeah, it's looking pretty good.
Was a penalty as well. I don't think we'll be arguing about that one today.
Yeah, well, that was it was on Verbruggen, but thankfully karma comes around nicely, and Anana was like, you know what, Bart, anything you can do, I can do more pathetically. So it worked out quite nicely there.
Yeah, one of my United fan friends said 18 months ago he felt like he was very concerned they had just signed a Cameroonian Fabian Barthez. And he's looking more and more Nostradamus week after week, though, isn't he? Like, for those of us that watch Fabian Barthez play, there's a lot of Andre Onana in that place.
Barthez though had his highs, though, didn't he? He had his really high highs.
He did.
So he won a World Cup. He had some of his reflex saves and flexibility that he had was amazing. And Onana, you're like, he seems okay at goalkeeping, and then it's just awful other times. So okay.
The attention span of like a 4-year-old or like a cat. All right, let's cover. It's great because we just can cover wins and goals, which is so rare of late. So let's do it. Let's talk second leg of the East Anglian trip that the Albion went on away at Ipswich Town. Obviously, we talked a little bit about it. Prior to us, they'd actually picked up a cheeky little bit of form. Win at home to Chelsea 2-0, a draw away at Fulham, who have been obviously pretty good this year, especially at home. And then a very comfortable win against Bristol Rovers at a canter in the FA Cup, which is similar to us against Norwich, right? Like, it can really help that mindset, right? Because Norwich, I mean, geez, like, what a great trendsetter that has been for us. So coming into this, only a draw at the Amex against Ipswich. They, I'm sure, were very much up for this. Verbruggen, Veltman, Van Hecker, Webster, Estepinian, Baleba, Ayari, Mitoma, O'Reilly, Adingra, and Pedro was the lineup. Really notable here was Welbeck on the bench, Minte on the bench, Dunk on the bench, March on the bench as well. We were told that both Minte and Ruta had done hamstring damage at the end of the Norwich game when they came off and were likely to be out for a couple of weeks each. And neither of those things has happened. We've become very lucky for once this season with our outrageous injury record. But how great is that to have those 2 back? Obviously, it wasn't as bad as first feared. And João Pedro's MRI comes back. Everything's coming up Brighton this month by the looks of it.
It was the lineup was interesting, as you say, with the bench as well. But I know we'll probably talk in more depth about the game. I'd say that the first half was pretty miserable. I've tried to forget a lot. You were there, right? So you know full well that it was kind of a bland affair. I think it was. I'm looking at the expected goals in the first half: 0.14 for Ipswich, 0.26 for us. Real classic affair in that first half. But yeah, I mean, I thought Webster deputized pretty nicely as well for Lewis Dunk. We saw Matt O'Reilly come into play, got an assist, and he got that assist quite nicely, and then has fallen off the face of the earth for the Man United game. Wasn't even in the squad. I'm not quite sure what happened there. Maybe it will come out afterwards that he picked up a knock, or maybe Hertzler's just not feeling it, because I'm not sure we've quite seen his performances just yet. But no,
Gruder,
I mean, I thought, what's that?
Gruder as well, not been in featured.
Well, he picked up a knock. That one is a knock.
Okay.
Yeah. Whereas the Matt O'Reilly one today, I don't know if I've not seen any news as to why he just wasn't in the squad, which I thought was, not to just go all over the place here. This happens when we're talking about 2 games in one go. But
right, we know this is going to happen.
yeah, exactly. I thought it was a bit confusing because when you looked at the bench today, your only central midfielder that you had to come on in the game was Diego Gomez, and this was a guy that Hertzler came out a week or so ago, less than a week ago, and said, "Nah, he's not there yet. He's not fit, not up to speed." So, well, actually, hold on, he's going to be our only option if anything happens. How about that instead? So, yeah, that was a little confusing. So it remains to be seen what happens there. But yeah, it was I obviously everything happened in the second half here, but I thought it was interesting in the sense that when we played Ipswich earlier in the season, they caused us a lot of problems, and we looked quite naive in that game originally at the Amex, and they played their game nicely, as in they could absorb the pressure from us and then counter-attack nicely. And in this game, we didn't see that quite as much, right? There was a lot more wisdom from the Brighton team, and we saw a more conservative attitude in the first half, and then the ability to then come out and actually make an impression in the second half and change the game. There was a tweet that I saw from an Ipswich fan that I thought was really nice and fair from, an opposition fan. Said, "We weren't anywhere near our best, but let's credit Brighton too. They set up perfectly to stop us, frustrated Delap tactically where we want to get to, and they were good at doing that. Pedro was a handful. Ruta was an unreal player, and Baleba is one of the best central midfielders I've ever seen, and good fans too." That's pretty nice, isn't it? But again, we're seeing Hertzler's ability to adapt and change his game plan from what he's seen, and that's a nice positive.
Yeah, I was very annoyed at the time, but I think it was a bit of a gift that I barely got to watch for half of that first half because the Ipswich stewards took it upon themselves to turn into the Punisher and decide to mete out justice around the Albion fans around me. It was one of the most bizarre experiences away from home I've ever experienced in my life. For those of you who have never been to an away game, which I'm sure it's about 4 of you who will end up listening to this, but for those of you who haven't, the away fans stand. That's how it is. They stand at the Amex, right? We don't complain about it. That's just how it is, right? They stand. When you're away from home, you stand. Apparently, yesterday or Thursday was not the day. The stewards decided immediately as soon as the whistle went that we were not allowed to stand, but did a terrible job at enforcing it. They were just randomly picking people to sit down and then would get upset when they would stand back up because half the crowd was still stood up. They also then tried a new technique of having everybody sit down from the back to the front as opposed to front to the back. We were assured that this was a strategy that has worked numerous times before and to shut up. And it didn't work very well. It was all round, honestly, the biggest shambles I've ever seen. There was about 3 fights almost break out between fans and stewards. I'm 99% sure a steward got sacked on the spot at halftime. There was a line to each and every Albion steward there of people complaining about the behaviour of the stewards at Ipswich. And the pitch enforcement officer lady spent the second half screaming passive-aggressive comments about the Albion fans for the next 45 minutes and was absolutely livid when we scored. So it was an absolute shit show from a fan perspective, bro. For those of you who are in the lower block will know exactly what I was talking about. But it was absolute madness. And then obviously it comes to the highlights and realize that actually we've really missed very little. There was far more drama in the stand than there was actually on the pitch in that first half. And then the second half, it was all at our end. And they gave up at halftime and allowed us to stand for the rest of the time. I suspect words were exchanged between Albion staffers and the Ipswich stewards because it was immediate. Like they just stopped. And we went on to win the game. And really, as you say, like we were a very mature football side in that second half. And we'll talk about it again for today's game. And a marked difference between these two performances and Leicester and Wolves. for me. Like they're the benchmark of we can't ever do that again.
Yeah, well, Hertzler also, after the goal went in against Ipswich, switched it up tactically a bit and went more sort of 4-4-2-ish than what we were doing up until the goal was scored. So yeah, like I mean, they had Ipswich in the second half. This is a side at home that needed to come back into a game. They're one shot in the second half. Now that's the performance level that you want to see against. Let's face it, it doesn't matter about what we all think of Liam Delap or whatnot. This is player quality wise, Ipswich are not there. We should be doing this. And the problem that we've seen prior to this point is, as you say, we were facing weaker sides. And we can say that now. This is a Brighton squad that has had hundreds of millions of pounds invested into it. It's been designed, and I listened to I think it was a Sky Sports thing that was on YouTube. It's about 45 minutes sit down interview with Paul Barber. And it was really interesting. This is a club and a team now that's been designed where the floor is 10th. They do not want to finish anywhere below 10th position in the table. And all of the staff bonuses and club bonuses are contingent on all of that fact. This is a side where we should, when we're facing 50% of the sides in the Premier League, say that we outgunned them. And we need to then capitalize on being able to outgun these sides, and that's what we did against Ipswich. It was a professional performance in the second half to get the win and walk away comfortably. The first goal I do want to comment on very quickly, because I think a couple of things that we've seen maybe slightly differently over the course of the last 2-3 games. The first is Joel Veltman being in the side and his passing ability, not just defensive. Not only does every time we face a team, all of the opposition fans come out and say Joel Veltman is the devil incarnate, which we know then means that he's doing a good job, because he is our club shithouser, and he is such an asset, not only defensively, not only from the ability to input gamesmanship in, which we didn't necessarily have in the past. And even with Joel Veltman in the side in the past, that level of gamesmanship wasn't really seen under Graham Potter. We started to see it under De Zerbi a little bit, and now it's really come to the fore, I feel like, under Hertzler, where you almost expect Veltman to do some stuff in the game, which is, to coin the overused phrase around Arsenal, is a bit dark artsy. Which is great. His pass to pick out Ayari on the right flank was really, really strong. Ayari's then ball in to Matt O'Reilly, who instead of taking a snapshot, then picked out Matoma, was just a quality little bit of play. I want to talk about Ayari as well, because he wasn't necessarily amazing against Ipswich, but there's a couple of games recently where he has been absolutely astounding. What was the second half? It was second half against Norwich where he was incredible. Who was it against?
Brentford. No.
Villa, Brentford, Arsenal. One of them.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think he was being really chastised during that run of poor form that we had. Is get Ayari out of the team. He's too lightweight. We need more solidity. We even talked about how we want to maybe see Belabor and Weaver in certain games, especially when we're away against tougher opposition. My word, has he come in and proved us and everyone else wrong, because he has been another level. And for me, not to get ahead of ourselves and spoil it, I think he was probably man of the match against Manchester United as well, with his ability not only to create one of the goals today, his ability to work his way out of tricky situations, his pass selection, his running with the ball and quality on the ball is really second to none. I think he's really turned a corner in the last few games, and that has made a big difference.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think it comes in tandem with him being, either it's being allowed or he's more confident, but he is going forward a lot more than he was prior. It felt like they were very much like the classic double pivot under De Zerbi and sitting back. And he is too lightweight to do that, right? Like Belabor can do that. Like Belabor is an athlete. Like he's a beast. Like Ayari has never been able to do that. And when he was coming on and making his sub appearances and looking really promising at the start, like they were always ones where he was allowed to just go forward. And these last 3 games, he's been allowed to do that. And against Ipswich, I think both the formation on SofaScore and on Who Scored all put it as a 4-1-4-1 more than a 4-4-2 or a 4-4-1, 4-2-3-1, because he was actually allowed to push a lot further forward with O'Reilly. And if you go back and look at it, it's absolutely spot on. And that's where he is far more successful and effective, where he's allowed to press high, win the ball high up, play passes around, get himself out of trouble, play the ball out to Mitoma, play the ball out wide. He's been able to do that all over. And that, and again, there's another name that we need to talk about, because this is a player that was at Norwich. I slated him at Norwich, and he had gone quite quiet for a while now. But what a return to form for Kaoru Mitoma! Unbelievable 2 performances for him as well.
You know what's weird though, because I thought he was really good against Ipswich. Obviously scored 2 goals in 2 games, which is quite good. You might want to say. But I thought if Man United showed anything today, it was Amad Diallo, and he single-handedly helped them get 3 points in midweek. Right, where he came out and just was like, all right, you guys are all shit, I'm just going to do this myself. and he was fantastic today, and his defensive work to stop Mitoma's attacks today on the left flank was really, really good. I think if Diallo wasn't there, or it was just another day, another player, Mitoma probably would have had an even bigger day today against Manchester United, despite obviously getting the goal in at the far post. But yeah, he's also been sort of a revelation in the last few games compared to that massive drop off in form. Credit to Hertzler for whatever he's saying to the players individually, whatever he's doing on the training pitch to turn that run of form around. I think we still got question marks, obviously, on the right-hand side as to who plays there and how it works. But I will say, not to just throw plaudits out constantly, but I was actually really impressed with Minte today. Made fair amount of overruns of the ball, and I guess I think I mentioned this in our chat. He tried to go around the outside 400 times and ran the ball out for a goal kick, and you're just like, what are you doing? But he also made some really good defensive challenges, because we tucked Mitoma in more, didn't we? So it almost became sort of 3 centre-backs when Man United were in possession, which then meant Minter had to track back a lot. And he was putting in real effort to make sure he got back and made a difference there. And I thought he was really impressive. And of course, going the other way, he has that ability. And we saw that with the ball. He got his assist today.
Yeah, absolutely shit their pants, didn't they? They just could not cope with him. But yeah, I mean, Minter and Mitoma, they're seemingly enjoying each other's company, right? A goal and assist each today, to each other. So I mean, something's working out all right there. The right hand side, like you say, the right hand side against Norwich, Minte looked very good. It was a case of is that because it's a championship side, not so great. And then he actually puts in a performance today where he gets a goal and assist against United at Old Trafford as well. So obviously, he's not just found his level at a lower league. He's actually just pretty good when he can be. But you're right. He's had a tough start to it. And I think it's one of those tough things as well, really, because you say you don't applaud it out to everybody. We've been slated for being too negative. So let's just give them out if we can.
Yeah, look how it changes when the side is an absolutely abject shit. We're quite positive.
Yeah, amazing, right? But I thought that, Adingra looked all right as well against Ipswich. They did not like dealing with him. I've not seen Leif Davis that well corralled in a long time.
Decent word, yeah.
Yeah, that was.
You pulled that out. It took a little while to find it, but it was there.
It did, yeah.
Yeah, it was in the archives.
But Leif Davis, I rate him massively. I think he's excellent player. And he's really been one of Ipswich's only bright spots of the season, really. Obviously, Delap as well, but he isn't even theirs, right? He's still City's, I believe. Is he on loan still from City?
No, I don't think so.
Or is he permanent there?
I think.
But either way,
yeah, he's permanent.
Leif Davis has been excellent, and he was the one that I was most worried about knowing that we are susceptible to a set piece or two, and how good he is on the ball and crossing the ball in, I thought, oh boy, like let's not allow him anything. Veltman and Adingra knew their job inside out. They literally gave him absolutely nothing. And I thought that was one of the most important pieces of the game for me. And I mean, Veltman, like we are now 10 unbeaten when Veltman starts for the Albion. So he is putting on, he's putting on his own little Rodri streak. I, for one, believe a Ballon d'Or is on the way if he continues with this kind of form.
I tell you what, we've seen. I'll throw out a positive and I'll throw out a negative as well. One negative, I've got one negative, if you'll allow me. The first positive is I don't know how many more times we can talk about how good Baleba is. And I know both games, and I know he's going to get some shit for what happened today and giving away the penalty. For me, that's 5% on him and 95% on Verbruggen, who Verbruggen's got that in him. We know that a lot of his past selection's been pretty poor his whole time here. Quite honestly, he's still young, and I think he'll figure that piece out because his shot stopping the other day was also really, really good. I'm trying to remember there was a performance that really stood out to me. All these games have blended into one. I think it was the Ipswich game.
He made 3 or 4 saves against Ipswich that I think were excellent saves, but I would still expect him to make if he's as good as we want him to be.
Yes.
But they were still fantastic saves.
Exactly. And that's the fact that we can hold him, with the fact that we can have that expectation about him is a good sign. If you can figure out his pass selection under pressure, which is important because that's the entire system, that will make just a massive amount of difference. But Baleba's just been unreal. He's got better and better over the season, where you still saw quite a number of those mistakes early on in the season where Baleba took one too many touches and he would give the ball away in tricky situations. I've not seen much of that, anywhere near as much as that lately. And he now just looks like he sort of purrs around the field. And his ability to pick, the pass that he picked out today to Mitoma for the first goal.
Yeah.
First of all, he dropped deep, basically into centre back. He was in line with, I think, Van Hecke or Dunk. I can't remember who. And he's just like, you know what? You guys are pushed up a bit. I'm just going to just ping a ball out. And it was just a perfect ball. Like, I
immediately thought it was Dunk. Like, on the when you're just like passively watching and all of a sudden, like, he breaks through and obviously we score. Like, I was like, oh shit, who played that pass? And then I was like, oh, it's got to have been Dunk. Like a arching, lofted ball over the top to just ruin the back line. To Mitoma is like peak Dunk. And I'm like, oh no, that's just Baleba doing it. Like, because that's what he can do now.
He is just, I don't know what else to say about him. With Iari's pick up in form and the quality that he's showing, along with Baleba, I don't want to curse it, but there's no way we can talk about this being McAllister and Caicedo level yet. We talked about Baleba potentially being better than both Basuma and Caicedo, but you can see the similarities now, right? Earlier stage, the formation of a really, really intriguing partnership, and they're both so young. But I can't believe the staff at Brighton have, like, it's like those cartoons. Like, how do they keep getting away with this? Like, how do we keep on this conveyor belt of these amazing players? The ability to pick out the profile that fits for these roles, and then they turn into world beaters. No doubt in my mind that Baleba is going to, I've said this before, Baleba is truly going to be world class. And Ayari's shines that he's showing are so good. My one negative, just to come around to it, is Purvis was shocking today. Shocking. Defensively, a liability. He just ignored Diallo like 5 times, and he would jump and try and bite on a press, and it was the wrong timing completely for it, and it would just outposition him, and then Diallo would just run in behind, and then Mitoma had to work even harder to come back and try and then do more defensive stuff. I was confused by that, and because Estupino I thought was good against Ipswich.
I was going to say he had a very good performance against Ipswich. It was really, Right, really very good, like really mature, right? Like, which is like something
Yeah.
Purvis isn't always. I thought the same thing. I thought he played really well. I thought great, like, and especially with Webster there as well, right? Like, you're like, this is a player that he's been given a lot of shit at times, but like, regardless of what you think about him, Webster, he is a player that gets better with a run of games. So we know is going to be rust there, right? Even if he puts off a great performance, which I think he did. I think he played really well, but like, there's potential for like a slow start. Like, lots of players have that rust on him. He hadn't played in a long time, right? Like, since like the Norwich game was his first one back, hadn't played in ages. Like, the guy's been on and off with injuries horribly. So for him, like, Estepinian to put in a good performance, you're like, great, like, everything looks good. Today, totally agree with you. Really poor, like, really, really poor. Like, it didn't affect the game really in terms of goals scored, right? Like, thankfully, but that is just as much on United's total inability to execute as anything, as much as anything
Well,
else.
yeah, exactly. If Diallo had anyone else to help him, again, you could part of this you can talk about and say, well, this was more Diallo than it was Estupinian being bad, more Diallo being good. But he's going to face tricky opposition more often than not. I think the fact that you saw Lamptey come on to play left back was a very clear indication that Hertzler was pretty much done with him as well. Like, you don't make that sub if you're sort of just you're happy with it, because you want to sit in, you want to create more solidity. You don't want to bring someone in cold to the game. And he's like, no, I tell you what, Tarek Lamptey, you're going to go play out of position. You're not even very good defensively, but you're going to be better than that. And he was.
I don't know whether it was a case of just bringing him on also, one, because he had played quite poorly, but two, like, let's prevent a Diallo late stage strike and put pace against pace and stop him.
Yeah.
Lots of people in the chat today. Adrian Check is in the chat. Looks like the physicality didn't affect the boys as much today. Hopefully this is a trend going forward. I think that's one of those things that we're starting to see with time, right? Like, you're starting to see these players become the level of fit we need them to, given the money we've spent on them, right? Like, your Reuters, your Iaris, like, your players that haven't played at this level before are all starting to get into their Premier League bodies now, right? Like, they're starting to, like, harden up. Like, it's tough out there when you're playing against these elite football players. James in the chat as well. Magic Mitoma is back. Stephen as well in the chat. Nice to see that Brighton are beating relegation teams now. Yeah, it's never going to happen, but we can dream. Talking a little bit about Ayari, man of the match today as well, for Stephen in the chat as well. We will talk a little bit about Adrian's comment about the Mitoma record here shortly. Max Wood as well, rarely gets to listen live. I hope you're well. Lots of experienced players all fit again. I mean, I think we talked about that already, just how important it's going to be to have these players stay fit is going to be crazy important. Pierre as well saying that BBC and Sky Sports as well, I've seen, are desperate to run hype stories on Delap. They've had to conveniently overlook Thursday's performance. Do you think that Purvis is falling off? Or do you think he's struggling with what he's being asked to do? Or do you think the formation today that United set up with was just one that Purvis struggled to deal with?
I'm not going to say anyone's falling off anymore, because I've been screwed on that in the past. We look at these things on a game by game basis, and it's easy to fall into a trap of saying, oh, this is now the truth about this particular player. And you can see good runs of form and bad runs of form. And I think sometimes SG Pinion's a little eager to get forward, do a little too much. Back to what we talked about Baliba earlier on in the season. For me, Estupinian always takes one too many touches. He's always tripping over. We talked about him sort of feeling like a deer on ice a lot of the time. He always looks like he's just seen a football for the first time, and he gets the ball and he's like, what happens with this then? And he falls over it, something happens, and he just flicks it up, pings it around, and you're like, oh, hold on, what's gone on here? It just looks like a player that's so weirdly uncomfortable yet comfortable with the ball. I don't know if that makes any sense to anyone, but I feel like when I watch him, that's what I think. So no, my hope here is this is just a bit of a run of form, and he needs to just, in training, Hertz will probably take him to one side, be like, look, mate, you don't always have to try and jump into the press. Just sit, because you've already got defensive cover from central midfield. You've already got defensive cover from left wing. You don't need to suddenly then choke up the point because you've got a runner in behind you. And obviously that was Diallo's task today. I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case with every club and every right winger in the future, but he needs to be aware of it.
Yeah, I agree. Gio and Kay watching us from Chennai. Love it.
God, what time is it there? It's got to be like midnight or something, isn't it? Or 1 a.m. or something in India?
Very, very late.
Yeah.
Let's talk the record, though. Again, we're moving all over the place, but let's talk the record. Kaoru Mitoma, now the most goals for a Japanese football player in the Premier League. Tied up with Okazaki with Ipswich, and he decided he was going to knock that record out real quick by cruising into Old Trafford and doing the same thing again. Like we said, fell off a little bit for a while there. Was just very quiet. Like when he got the ball, he was good, but like for like a good month or more, he just was very ineffective. Like they didn't really touch that left-hand side, which was bizarre given how random our right is. What do you think is the outlook for him? Do you think that we keep do you think he's going to have suitors in the summer? Like, feel like for the last couple of years we've been sure that he's going to go in the summer. But after this first half of the season, what are you feeling about Mitoma? Like, do you think he's going to come into his own again now? Do you think it's going to drop off? Like, what is the future for Kaoru Mitoma in Purvis's opinion on that left-hand side, given that what we talked about today?
Well, the good thing is that he does, he protects us nicely, and that he'll, throughout the season, he'll look like a world beater, and then he'll look quite off it for a few games. And I think that potentially scares off the big suitors. They're like, wow, we need a bit more consistency than that. And that's great for us because then he just comes back into form and starts being unbelievable again. The interesting thing with Mitoma, right, is because of his path, because probably of his nationality and the way in which it worked out, it's not like your quintessential Brighton signing of this is some 22-year-old and every club is now going to say, oh my God, I want to take a risk on this player. Like we've seen enough to say that in the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years, whatever stupid contracts they're handing out nowadays, Haaland 10 years, like we're doing, we want to get a bit of that. He's going to be 28 this year, and how many clubs are going to say, all right, I'm going to spend big money because he's not going to be cheap, right? He's contracted for another 2 years at the moment, so we're coming up a little bit, but he's not going to be cheap. You're probably looking at a better part of what 60 plus 70 million for him, 60 million, depending on how he runs the contract down. And you're going to look at, for a player of his style, 3, maybe 4 years out of that. So I think we're protected a little bit, and I'll regret saying this when he leaves, like to go to Arsenal or something and just follow Trossard in about 3 months. But to me, I think that protects us a little bit because he's that little bit older and he has these drop-offs in form. But yeah, benefits us massively because even, as you say, even in those games where you felt like he wasn't doing amazing, he's still always a presence, still always draws additional defenders over and creates space elsewhere. He's also the player where if you want the ball at someone's feet, anyone on the team, it's Mitoma. You want it. You want Mitoma to be able to do something incredible. We've seen a bit of that. We still haven't seen what we want to see. At least I haven't seen what I want to see. Like today, I wanted him to dance around Diallo, run around the back, get the ball in, like do a little more of that. Now, it's hard to criticize a guy that scored 2 goals in 2 games, got an assist, 1 assist, 2 assists, whatever it is. I still want him to do his classic, like run around 2, 3 people, run to the byline, cut it back, make something happen there. That's the bit we're still missing a little bit from his game over the last few weeks, for me at least.
Yeah, and like going back to the idea that he's going to run his contract down or throw a Trossard in the next couple of months. Like I think he signed a 5-year deal, didn't he? Like 2 years ago, so he's got 3 more left.
I think it's I've got it here as 2027, June 2027.
Okay,
2.5.
Right. And his agent is Japanese as well. Not to stereotype, they just don't do business that way. Their entire culture is not, they don't do business the way Trossard did business. If he had Caicedo's agent, I'd be a lot more worried.
Caicedo's mum.
Yeah. But the way they operate is that it's not going to work like that. I think it will be a pretty respectful exit like some of the others we've had, right? And I don't think we'll ever complain about people like McAllister going, right? I think we're all a bit bummed that we let him go for so cheap, but that's our club's fault, right? Like it's not anyone else's. Yeah, I don't worry too much about him running it down or being a geek about it or anything like that. But yeah, there's going to be some things there that I think we're going to need to see improve. Mitoma Sting this season seems to be cutting inside on his right, but
yeah, I agree
almost every time. It's literally just what I was about to say. His play style has become very narrow, where there was multiple times before where he was happy dancing either way. It feels like he's wanting to drive into the box more often. I feel like that's got to be something he's being asked to do.
Has to be.
But you know, we've absolutely slated Adingra for doing the same thing. I think it's fair to call that out there. The Mitoma's doing the same thing quite often as well. But I mean, his talent level is obviously stupid. So I think for me, like, if you can tie him down, just keep tying him down because he's just capable of insanity sometimes. And the last couple of games, I thought he's been, stupid.
He's look, of all the players you want to see play, like I said, this is the guy you want the ball at his feet, but he's also the one that you frankly you come to see play, right? He's the biggest ticket in town. That his ability. I know this is obviously skewed by fan bases and things like that, but go on the Brighton and Hove Albion YouTube channel and just look at the videos and just sort by popular. They're all Mitoma highlights, every single one. Like he's your highlight reel, and there's something to be said about that. And sometimes you certainly need that in certain games. Again, the positive that we have here, I think in previous seasons we've had a massive over reliance on Mitoma and we've run him into the ground. And that we've seen the fall off, right? You said it last season. I remember like the guy looked gassed. Now you don't have to do that. You've got more players that you can come in and play there because you've sorted out. I say sorted out the right side because you've got more bodies on the right side. You can bring in a Adingra to play on the left hand side. You've got other players that can spill out to the left rather, and replace him. So you're not so limited to have to say Mitoma, you're playing every game, or we're just going to be like 80% of our ability without you. Yeah. I think what I want to see as well with these upcoming games, we've talked about injuries a little bit. Every cameo that we've seen so far from Solly March got me excited.
Yep.
Not only obviously we've talked about the big amazing curler goal that he scored when he just came on Norwich, right? Again, all the games are blending. The little flick or pass he did today against Manchester United.
Superb. So sharp. The guy is so sharp for coming straight back. He's one of those ones we talk about players having rust. Zero. None.
No. Like, rustless. Rustless leg syndrome. Yeah.
Rustless Solly, yeah. Like he's absolutely ridiculous. Like it's the pass was excellent. He looked great the entire time he was on. He just looks different to every other right-sided midfielder we have. I think, like, I want him to start as soon as possible, but I understand why he's not. Minte just scored and assisted a goal, right? Like, a bit harsh to drop him now, but yeah, it's rough. Again, I know we're bouncing around, but let's get to goal number 2 at Ipswich and goal number 3 at Manchester United to talk about another player. Came on as a substitute both games and was honestly quite comfortably man of the match against Norwich when he started. £40 million we paid for Jorginho Ruta. A lot of people, I don't think anyone on this podcast, to be fair, but a lot of people online were skeptical of that price and thought we'd absolutely been ripped for that and were not particularly happy with the money spent on that signing. I think for a lot of us, we were just excited that we spent a lot of money on a player that was obviously very promising. Didn't really know what to expect. For anybody who was worried about him not living up to that price tag, I would argue that by January 19th, 6 months into his deal, he's probably already made up for it. Unbelievable impact this kid's had. Like, and I say kid because he is. Like, he is still so young I think we talked about it against Norwich as well. He's 22 years old. Like, he scored again today. He scored against Ipswich. Like, he ran the game at Norwich. Like, he's mature enough to be coming off the bench when he has every reason to think he should be starting both Ipswich and United, right? And he should be thinking he should start against Everton. How can he not think that? He scored goals in every game in his last 3. Like, he should be expecting to start. If he doesn't, he's going to come on and score anyway. Like, the guy's unbelievable. Unbelievable personality. Such a funny dude on the pitch. Like, the fans absolutely love him. Like, his celebration stuff at Ipswich was great. Same again here. Like, he's shoving Gomez to go do the, like, Ole shit at the end of the game. Like, 22 years old. He's clearly, like, a big personality in the locker room. Fans love him. 40 million quid. Like, absolute bargain for me already. Like, what a player.
Yeah, I think you can throw out, and I misused this a long while ago when I think I labeled Milner this. He's become a bit of a talisman, hasn't he?
He has, yes.
And that's a nice role to have. Almost feels like that same level of fandom as a Knockaert in some ways, right? And yeah, his impact's massive. The quality on the ball and his ability to go around people. You saw at Leeds. Like, he was another highlight reel player where there was always some ridiculousness that he was doing. The question marks were against his finishing. And we saw that his run of form, when you talk about the December games, he was crap. For the most part, he was absolute crap. And he scored 4 goals in 3 games. And he's not even played properly in those games. I mean, right place, right time for all of these. That's not luck.
Not a number 9, though, apparently.
Not a number 9. I don't even know
his own belief, from what I can gather. Like, from Hertzler, it sounds like that's Reuter's belief. He doesn't think he's a number 9.
I don't know what he is. I don't really know what he is. But again, he plays that sort of Joker role, doesn't he?
Do you know what he just makes me think? He makes me think of Pascal Gross in a totally different body in terms of, like, the way he plays, right? But right player, right time, talisman, clearly loved in the locker room, great person. Like, he's literally the guy that I feel like is filling that Pascal Gross role in that final third. And well, now he scored against United, so it's got to be official, right? Like, but
yeah,
like he seems to be trending in that direction of, well, Knockaert as well, as you say. I think he's a great comparison as well. Like, one of those players that you just need to pop up. And, like, sure, Knockaert was a right winger out and out, right? But, like, the amount of times he just randomly pops up in the box at different areas and scores goals or sets one up that, like, you're just like, why was he even there?
I mean, the club always needs a cocky Frenchman that is like
clearly
has an eye for goal. We always need one.
Yeah, it was. I'm just so impressed with him. I think he's such a good player, and he's only 6 months in, and like he's like the growth he's had even now is just absolutely mental. I think he's just been brilliant. All right, let's talk a little bit about the penalty for Manchester United, and then the subsequent disallowed goal for our second goal that never was, but actually ended up not mattering for once. What were your thoughts on the penalty given by Baleba? We've sung his praises all day. This is the unfortunate downside of a central defensive-minded midfielder that is still only 21 years old, isn't it? Blatant foul, definitely a penalty.
Yeah, I'm going to be quick on these two things because, as you say, ultimately didn't impact the outcome of the game, and they're boring to talk about. But for me, yeah, for Bruggen, screwed up. That's on him. Baleba then obviously should have done a bit better, but I think he's just like, I'm not letting this go in. It's definite penalty. So be it. And then at the other end, the disallowed, it was just unfortunate. It was so scrappy. Like, it was absolute, mayhem pinball goal. Bruno Fernandes plays everyone on side. Yeah, Van Hecke does clip him.
Did you watch that back? If you haven't, watch it back and watch why Bruno plays everyone on the side. I don't know if you've seen it.
Who pushed him?
Because João Pedro.
Yeah.
Just shoves Bruno as hard as he can before the kick's played to make sure he plays everybody on side.
But that's what that's Arsenal. That's Arsenal stuff. Yeah. Yeah, that's what they've been doing all see. They did it against tried to do it against us. Declan Rice tried to do it. Yeah, so I mean, technically, as soon as you start to then watch a replay of what Van Hecker did 400 times on a monitor after you've been called back to look at it, obviously you're going to disallow the goal. In any other situation pre-VAR, obviously this is never going to get called back because it was just melee, just a melee. And I honestly, from what I saw, who was the defender? Some idiot.
Dallo.
Dallo or Delict,
Yeah.
one of the DLs.
It was Dallo.
Right. For me, he'd already kicked the ball into it went into the chest. Didn't it go into the body of Euro or Delict? He'd already.
It didn't affect the outcome.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, so it's like, yes, it's a penalty when you watch it over and over again, but it's not also really it's just a really annoying one to give.
A foul.
Yeah,
not a pen. You're talking foul.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah, like for me, I hate them being fouls. I totally get why they are, but I hate them being fouls nonetheless. And for the people who don't follow American football on here, it must be sick of my analogies, but it reminds me of these really harsh rough in the passer calls where a player is already mid-air to sack the quarterback and then they get flagged for hitting the quarterback. Like Van Hecker is absolutely fairly going for that football. And he is just, half a second behind Dalot's foot. There's no maliciousness. There's no, I can understand why it's given as a foul. But at the same time, I'm asking myself, what is he supposed to do then? Like, is he supposed to just stand there and let Dalot play it just in case he got his foot there first, which he did? But, 50% of the time he may not. And that could have been a totally different outcome. Like, I think it's really harsh, those fouls, because I get why they're given and I'm fine with it being given. But like, it is also just in the other side of me is just like, well, what's he supposed like? Where's his foot supposed to go then? Like, he had every right to go for that ball as Dalot did.
What was it was the other day, the cancelled goal for Arsenal against Villa. For me, it's a similar parallel where Havertz,
the handball, yeah,
I don't know what else he can do with his arm.
It's literally like tucked in, like
he's tucking his arm away and he's moving it away from the ball.
Yep.
I don't know, unless we get really into amputee stuff. There's nothing else he can do with his arm. So the argument on the other side is you go, well, it deflected the ball, so it changed the path of the ball. Yeah, it did. It's just they're really weird situation with those. What was the other one the other day? Was it João Pedro that clipped someone in the box when he went for the ball and resulted in? Was it? We did this the other day. Pedro was defending against a free kick or a corner, and he clipped someone's foot in the box. And I can't remember what game it was, but similar type of thing where he was going for the ball. Yeah, I don't know what to do about them. I mean, you use the comparison for the NFL with a rough in the passer. I mean, if you watched the games yesterday with Mahomes and getting the flags that he gets, all the jokes about the referees having Kansas City Chiefs jerseys. I mean, that Man United, how long have they been accused of having referee favoritism? I will say, outside of that goal decision, I thought, is it Peter Banks today?
It was Peter Banks, yep.
I actually thought it was quite good. He let the game flow. And there was a lot of situations where Man United players tried to flop and go down easy in challenges, and he just played. He also could have whistled up, could have blew up for that Ayari run when he went down. He let the game continue and obviously resulted in a goal. So credit where it's due in that regard. I thought he was quite good for the most part.
Yeah, I think these games. And there's been a couple of them where we've not won, right? But like these games in particular have been games where we've not really needed a ref to make many decisions, and the ones where we've needed him to have been quite straightforward, which is nice. There's not really been any big game-changing grey area moments where we've had to worry about that. And we
could have been
yeah, there could have been. But I think we've been quite lucky recently that we've not had those. Come up, because I think even looking back to Villa away, and Brentford at home as well. I'm looking at them now on the list. Like both of those games ended up in draws, like one at home, one away, and I think we probably should have beat Brentford. And we were unlucky not to get a win against Villa, to be fair. But I thought the ref there, like both times, like you just kind of forget that they were there, and like that's what you want. Like you ideally don't give them decisions to make because their decision making is not great. But today they were very straightforward. There was a couple of really obvious ones, and they actually got them right. Thank God.
Also,
so yeah,
the Man United, I know everyone's biased. Home fans are always biased towards their own players, but my word, are the Man United fans deluded on a multitude of levels. Every time a completely fair tackle came in from a Brighton player, like, oh, it's a foul. It's every time the refs are just like, what are you even talking about? Just nothing.
Yeah, they'd absolutely lost it. It's kind of like the refs are like, you don't have the same power you had anymore, boys. Like,
you're a joke now. You're
not getting those anymore.
Stadium is a mess. I'll tell you what. One other note from this, and I know you're probably going to go into a few of these pieces, but has there ever been a situation where two Paraguayans have come on at the same substitute occurrence in the Premier League?
Probably the most pointless stat of all time. No, I can't imagine that's happened. Yeah,
but that's put in the Guinness Book of Records, because that must have been quite a nice moment for them, though. But especially if you believe the noise that's coming around that Enciso's probably going to go either as a sign a new deal with Brighton and go out on loan, or just bugger off. Nice that he's able to have that little moment with Diego Gomez today.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, didn't really see much of Gomez. Didn't expect to be honest. I was honestly surprised he even brought him on. Yeah. But I'm not disappointed that he did. But also, he's had 3 minutes, like classic preseason run out, right? Like just get 3 minutes on the pitch, chase people around like headless chicken, and go home. Like happy days. Good job. But I mean, it makes sense, right? Like you've got a lot of players in that area of the pitch that wouldn't want to play football games, and Ciso is struggling for game time. If he's really passionate about playing as often as possible, let him go. Like I totally get it. He's one of those ones that is surplus to requirements where I don't want him to be in a lot of ways, but he unfortunately just is. And I would be very pleased with signing a new deal and sending him to Valencia, as the rumors have said. I think that was the one you posted yesterday in the chat that we have. I would be less happy with a full-time move to Atalanta, because I think, like Buonanotte, there's a serious talent there. I think he really needs a little bit more developmental time. And I'd be really disappointed if we let him go permanent. I'd understand it, but I'd be disappointed.
Agree.
So hopefully the deal can be done, and hopefully we can send him off to Valencia. And I mean, they're not playing very well at all, though, are they? They're bottom of the league on 13 points. It's not a beer shot, is it? Like,
is Gary Neville back?
Shambles. No,
he's gone back. One last run.
They are 7 points adrift at the bottom of La Liga, Valencia. So like, I hope that, I don't know who we're looking at, but if it is Valencia, like, I hope we've got our shit together, because that could be a very terrible atmosphere for Julio Enciso to go to.
He's there trying to do like 40-yard banana strikes when they're 4-0 down. Like, this is not the setting for that, mate. But you're right. Just in terms of, we talked about injuries a little bit earlier and how amazing it's been to see the likes of Solly March back, João Pedro come back quickly, Dunk back. João Pedro Scan be okay, but I think we're quite close from what was said at Hertz's press conference 3 days ago. Gruder, he claims, is going to be back next week. On the 14th, he said Matt Sweef is going to be back soon. Henshelwood's training already. Evan Ferguson's training. He might not be at the club much longer, but we're going to be left quite soon with the only long-term injuries being Igor Ferdi-Kadioglu and whatever disease James Milner has.
I was looking at the same page I think you're on, and I was just like, I keep forgetting Milner's still here, and like, God love him. Like, I don't like, I just like the poor bloke, like, missed the consistency for so long. Leaves
poor us.
Comes to Bright. Well, yeah, both of us. Yeah, we are a curse for these because it was the same for Lallana. Actually, Lallana was.
Lallana, we knew what that was. That was
we knew what we were getting.
Miles on it. Yeah.
It's really sad. Father Time has just literally came around with a 4-wheeler and just ran over Millwall.
Just
And whenever he
crushed
starts
him,
switching,
reversed. Yeah. Well, the Get a Fix has said this here. Our squad depth is insane. Yeah, when everyone's fit, we've got a lot of players, and you saw today. Again, we don't know. We might look silly when the news will come out in 20 minutes and talk about how Matt O'Reilly had a knock or whatever. But you still got Jakob Moder at this club. Matt O'Reilly wasn't in the squad today. You've got all these other players that are going to come back from injury. You're in a position where you're going to have, and we said this earlier on in the season, some really talented, strong players just completely left out of your match day squad. Completely out. Because you just purely can't have all of these players fit in. There are going to be multiple times this year where we're just not going to have your Gruders, your O'Reillys, your Diego Gomez's, your Weefers, Hinchelwoods. These players just potentially just won't be there, which is insane when you compare it to last season where we would have begged, borrowed, stolen for just anything, just a body from anywhere at the end of the season. I still want a centre back, having said all that, because you're still playing with fire with that position.
Do you think we get one though? 19th of January now. I don't think we've really had any news other than
there's never news with us, though, is there?
Rice,
really?
Or whatever his name was, the one who's going to City. What do you think? Do you think we actually get someone, or do you think that we get some news in like March of like Boscagli on a free? Or I mean, obviously, don't get me wrong, I'll be buzzing about that for next year, but I would quite like one for this year as well. What are your thoughts? Do you think we make a move? I mean, do you know what? Sack it off. Doesn't even need to be centre halves. Do you think we make a signing between now and the end of the January window? And I will argue with whoever. I will die on the hill that Gomez is not a January signing. By the way, anybody who wants to argue that, I'm dying on that hill because we signed him in freaking August. Like, it's not happening. This would be another window that we wouldn't have signed anybody.
This is a question I feel like that has to be answered within the context of, do you want the head or the heart answer? Because the heart says, yeah, absolutely, we do need to sign a defender. And that is my hope, that we pull something. There continues to be like low-level rumors. There's a guy we were linked with earlier today when I was looking at scrolling the depths, the seabed of Twitter, where all the like rancid rumors hang out. And there was another defender that we were seemingly linked with, who's looked quite pricey as well. Let me see if I can find it quite quickly here. But so there are some odd rumors flying around, but as you know, there is some noise with us sometimes, and then oftentimes we'll just pull a signing out and everyone's like, well, hold on, no one even talked about that, and it's just kept completely quiet. If you ask me to answer with the head, no, we don't sign anyone. Don't like doing January business, do we? But the fact that Paul Barber came out a couple of weeks ago and basically said categorically, no, we're not. We're almost certainly not going to do any business this month, tells me I think they'll do business this month, because they're always the type that are going to go against what they've come out and said, because they want to have that advantage. I do think, though, all signs are pointing to Moder going to Feyenoord, right? That's the big one that's being talked about, and Ciso leaving. And the noise about Evan Ferguson going to West Ham is ramping up big time for obvious reasons.
Big time West Ham performance yesterday under Potter, wasn't it? Classic Potter ball. Concede to a big target man, have more possession, more shots, none on target, lose.
It's just absolute
possible.
Yeah,
it's
quintessential potable. Yeah.
Yeah, it's this one makes no sense to me, this move, Ferguson to West Ham. Potter didn't rate him. Potter outright did not rate him at Brighton. That's why he never even got a look in for us.
Have you seen what West Ham have got up top?
No, and I'd probably be better off not hearing it. But I would be surprised, just because he doesn't rate him in the first place. So why bring him there if he's not a fan? But maybe he's grown and matured and he loves what Ferguson has to offer now. I don't know.
It's
for me,
they've got no one else.
No.
they've got because they have to play Bowen up front. Typically, he's injured now, right?
Yes, he is. Yeah.
Fulkrug has been injured all season, has not found any form. You could argue that Mikel Antonio, with half a leg left, still might actually be their best striker. Genuinely. So they need anyone.
They played Kudus up front yesterday, which says
how'd that go?
You need to know. Danny Ings came on. They got Danny Ings. What could they ask for?
I genuinely, when I saw that sub come on, I could not believe Danny Ings was still at West Ham. I couldn't believe it.
I could not believe he was still playing football.
What is he doing there?
I don't know.
Not much, I guess.
Like, how old is he now? 32. Only 32, Danny Ings. Jesus Christ. He's younger than me. I don't think we'll sign anyone this January. And honestly, like, it's not to sound ungrateful, right? Because we've been spending £200 million in the summer. But I really hope that we're proactive in the summer again this year. I don't expect another £200 million spent, right? Any Albion fan that does needs checking into the nearest mental institution, but like keep as many players as possible and drop a cool 50 million quid on a good centre half and an other player that we need based on who ends up being inevitably poached off of us. Like, you've got to be happy with that, right? Big question that I have to ask you, that is going to be one that I'm sure certain listeners will be wanting to ask with glee. We've asked a lot of questions to Fabian Hürzeler over the last 6 weeks. Lots of doubts cast on this man's ability to manage this football team. Lots of questions and concerns and confusion about some of his team selections, some of his substitutions, which have been unusual because beginning of the season they were very good. Results, mentality. What has changed between the 9-10 game winless run with some really, really awful stuff at times to 3 wins on the bounce and comfortable, not even close, but very comfortable performances? What's changed for you when you're watching this football team?
We looked so stagnant for those games in November, December. Like, we were completely out of ideas of how to attack. We talked about how Matoma seemed to not be there. The right wing was a problem. We just couldn't find someone that was effective. Ayari's form had completely dropped off. Baliba can only do so much. João Pedro was playing out of position. Neither he nor Ruta was able to score. Obviously, the lack of Danny Welbeck. You had all of these injuries. You're starting to get those players back. And as we talked about a little bit earlier, you're seeing a manager that is adapting to what he has. And I do think there was some stubbornness from him. And God, if you want to talk about stubbornness, just look at Ange, right? You've got this sort of dogmatic approach to playing football in a certain way, certain style. All your players are injured. They can't do it. And you smash your head against the wall and hope you don't bleed out. And I think probably, if you might be listening to this, I wouldn't be shocked on, Monday or Tuesday or whatever, if Ange was relieved of his position at Spurs. And Hürzeler could have easily fallen into that same trap. You said it the other day. Haven't we been top of the injury list in the Premier League? Yet Spurs is the one that's always talked about as
we're a million miles ahead of every other team in terms of days missed through injury this season. Like, insanely bad. Like I don't know how many ladders Bloom has walked under over the summer. Like, it is worse than last year's, and last year's was record setting. Like, it has been mental how bad it's been.
Well, I know everyone was putting out, fraud watch alerts on our German doctor that came in. God knows what he was doing. So, this the guy's come in. He's going to fix all our problems. Nah, they got worse. But people were trying to say, is the intensity of Hürzeler's system and the training causing a lot of these issues? I don't know about that, because we don't really play crazy intense football with the ball. There's a lot of stop and start and creating space and creating opportunities. Now, without the ball, there's a lot of pressing. Let's be granted, but most clubs nowadays are doing that exact same thing. That's just how these sides work. So yeah, I think we've just been unfortunate in a lot of regards there. So it's a combination of all those things, right? It's a combination of players coming back from injury and creating more options for Hurtzler. He's adapted. We talked about how he did this in the game the other day against Ipswich, where he tweaked the system. You saw today against Manchester United, you get a couple of goals, you start being sensible, bring on players, you drop back, you solidify a little bit more. He's learned from those games earlier on in the season. I'm thinking Wolves, the other one where we had the games won and
Leicester.
Just the hell. That we could have done that today. Absolutely, but he's adapted his thinking, and that is a big thing. What do you think? What do you point towards?
Yeah, something has changed in the maturity and ability to see out games for me. Like, and that may well be part of that stubbornness that you've just mentioned, like just continuing to grow and learn. But there seems to be buy-in again. Like there was absolutely a lack of effort from some players throughout that November and December. Like, it was blatantly obvious. Like, I don't know what dissent there was in the camp, because I just fail to believe there wasn't. We've watched the sport for long enough to know what these things look like. Like, I'm sure there was some spicy things going on behind the scenes, right? Like, we've all heard leaks and stories of like snippets of drama going on. But whatever it is, right, it's clearly been figured out, because this team look very together now. They look very happy, and they're scoring goals again. But like, it's the defensive solidity for me, and that tells me that something has changed in that maturity of just seeing out games and being a little bit less naive, right? Because to 3-1 up at Old Trafford, they made a lot of attacking substitutions. You think, here we go. This is where we draw 3-3 now. Like, if that was 2 months ago, that's a 3-3 draw. Absolutely. We absolutely fall apart and it's 3-3. And we don't. Like, if anything, it should have been 4-1, right? Like, yeah. I don't know exactly what it is, but there seems to have been an attitude adjustment somewhere over the last 3 to 4 weeks that has improved immensely. And it seemed to happen over the Christmas period, right? Because I think that's when we started to say performances have looked better, but we're still not winning. Villa, Brentford, a couple of those games, we're looking at them and going, actually, I can see actually better stuff here, but we still aren't winning. We really need to figure that out. And now we're starting to get those results again. Just talking about Spurs really quickly. Like, I think you're right. I don't think Ange is long. He's also lost his head a little bit too, hasn't he? At Spurs, Ange has lost it a little bit. But
what Spurs does to a man.
They break them, right? Like, they really do. Have you seen their starting 11, injured starting 11?
How impressive is it?
It's they're missing a right back, so Pedro Porro somewhere is like shitting himself right now.
I think they wish he's injured. He's terrible.
But they've got Vicario in goal, Van de Ven and Romero at centre half, Udogie at left back, Bissouma and Bentancur, Odegaard, Johnson, Werner, and Solanke. That's their starting 11. They're missing a right back, but other than that, that's pretty good. Basically their starting 11, isn't it? Like, there's not many of those that wouldn't be on the team sheet if they were fit. So
yeah,
I feel for him a little bit.
You do, but I think about same for us in certain points over the last few weeks. You could say the same. We could have had a proper tidy injury squad. Between having Kadioglu and Hinshelwood and Dunk and Igor, you've got decent back line there. You've got a couple of midfielders. We know we got a bunch of those out. You'd have your Milners and your Weefers in there. You would have had Danny Welbeck up top, Gruder or someone else on the right hand side. Like, pretty decent. Evan Ferguson in there. Like, we have a pretty nice team there as well. So yeah, the expectations at Spurs are obviously also different. Like, they are in such a bad position, man. At 8 points off of relegation, and they still scored 45 bloody goals. The side that they're 4 points above, they're 4 points above Everton. Everton scored 18 goals to 45, and they're separated by 4 points. The conceded goals is only 7 difference. The Everton have a goal difference of -10 and Spurs have one of +10. That is a 20 goal swing for 4 points. Like that is, I've never seen anything like that. So injuries and just dogmatism, we could say all that. I do also think Spurs have been quite unlucky in some of these too. But yeah, that's the place where careers go to die, isn't it?
It feels that way. They have 5 points from their last 9 games. They're 18th in the form table, only Leicester and Southampton below them.
It's not good. Yeah,
it is bad. And I mean, Southampton, like, Jesus Christ, I don't know if you saw any of the highlights from them today, but like they are so unserious. Like,
how couldn't we beat them?
It makes it more infuriating, doesn't it? And that's the worst part, I think. If you look at some of these games, if you look at, and I know it's all what if, right? If that's some buns, like whatever, but you've got Ipswich at home, dropping 2 goals to Leicester, dropping 2 goals to Wolves, and Southampton at home, right? That's 8 points that we should really have expected to have. Like, we're sat in 4th.
Well, we're only everyone's 4 points off Champions League now, aren't we? Or 4th
and everyone's
now.
Banging on, but everyone would be banging on about us and Forest then, instead of just circle jerking on Forest alone, right? Like, we'd be 2 points off Forest as well. Like, it's just so annoying.
It is, but if in some ways, and this maybe sounds bizarrely optimistic, but you almost wonder whether you needed that crap spell to then be able to create the situation and the setting for what's happening now. Now, of course, we go out next weekend and we shit the bed against Everton. Suddenly, we're all like, Hatzler, you fraud. We thought you figured it out. It just turns out you faced a bunch of absolute garbage teams and you can't even beat a David Moyes Everton at home. Like, yeah, the tone could change there. If you go now and you get 3 points at home, which, when's the last time we got 3 bloody points at home? November the 9th. Right? That's offensive. Of all the games we've played, how many games have happened? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 games have occurred in between now and our last home win, 11 or 12. So you've got to get 3 points against Everton. Suddenly, then you look around and you go, hold on. Everton, Man United, Ipswich, Arsenal, Villa. No loss in all those games. 11 points out of a possible 15. Impressive. Really impressive.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about being winless in 8, was it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, winless in 8. We're now unbeaten in 7.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Flip it, reverse it. Now we're unbeaten in 7. 4 draws, 3 wins.
Doesn't this feel like almost every other side in the league this season, bar the odd couple as well? Though I mean, you look at everyone, and Man City down, and obviously the Arsenal fans have lost their minds with where they're at in seconds, complaining, thinking the world is ending. But Manchester City, I also think, by the way, Pep Guardiola's and Man City's drop off in form over the last 2 months has helped a lot of other managers, because they can all just go, well, look, if it happens to him, it happens to us. Like, if you can say Pep Guardiola is potentially one of the best managers in the history of the sport, he's had one of the most expensively constructed squads of all time. They have been champions a million times over the last few seasons. They pretty much lost one important player to injury, and suddenly they'll go, that's all right, don't worry. Rodgers too important. You can't expect too much of them. You've got to then give excuses to other teams as well. And I think he's done them a favour. But look, they're as we talk, they're battering Ipswich with Phil Foden finally scoring and doing something. They're on 38 points. We're on 34. We didn't bloody win in 8 games. Like, what? I just don't.
It's mad, isn't it?
It's such a weird table. I would say, talking about potential fraud watch, you could include Arsenal on fraud watch, Manchester City definitely, based on how they've been. Newcastle, what do? They look like world beaters, and they come out and just do what they completely screwed up yesterday. Who was it even against? I'm forgetting.
It was against Bournemouth.
Bournemouth 4-1 at home. Clive at hat-trick.
Destroyed. Every goal was a banger as well. It wasn't just literally every single goal that Bournemouth scored was unbelievable.
This is a Newcastle side. Previous game, 3-0 win against Wolves, 2-1 win against Spurs, 2-0 win against Man United, 3-0 win against Villa, 4-0 win against Ipswich, 4-0 win against Leicester. And they come out and just get absolutely spanked. They're fraudulent. Chelsea, fraudulent. Bournemouth, fraudulent. Villa, 100% fraudulent. Us, yes. Fulham, yes.
Mega.
Yes. Palace, who knows what they are. Manchester United, yes. West Ham, yes. Spurs, yes. And the rest of the shit.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only consistency is that bottom four, right? Wolves, Ipswich, Leicester, and Southampton.
And Liverpool.
Consistently crap all year. And
Forest.
Liverpool as well, of course, yeah. Well, no, not even Forest, because they had that crap run for a little bit there that dropped them off. That stopped their title charge.
Their last 8 games, they've won 7. They are not.
No, I know. Good. Southampton, 6 points. Do you think they'd break the record?
What is the record? Was it Derby?
Derby, yeah, with 11, I believe.
That is bad. Minus 35 goal difference is pretty poor, isn't it?
Quite.
Yeah, 15 goals scored. And we played 22 games. Can you imagine being a Southampton fan this season?
I think whenever you go up, you just hope for the best, don't you? Like, let's be honest, you just hope for the best. Like, let's just go up, see if we can stay up one season. If we can stay up that first season, then we can build. I think we all thought that as Albion fans. Get up there, see if we can stay up for one season. That's the key. And then if we can, we'll trust in Bloom to build the foundations that we've got now. For them, there is no foundation. 6 points from 22 games is absolutely shocking. Minus 35 is bad. Derby were 11 points, minus 69 goal difference.
Nice.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough one to beat, isn't it? That is going to be a tough one to beat.
They're on course to match it, I think, now on trajectory. They're on course to match 11 points after 22 games played as their runs per over level. They're up there bang on 11 points.
What do you think we do against Everton? Because they're a weird side. And of course, they bring old Moisley boy back and immediately granted with 3 points after basically being shocking for the better part of 2 months. Or let's face it, the entire season. I genuinely, I'm not sure how this game is going to go.
No, you may as well flip a coin for me. Like, I really don't. I haven't got a single clue as to how this game's going to shape up.
I just, given that they've sort of had this like galvanizing thing with David Moyes now. Now, if it was going to be Dyche coming to the Amex, I would have said it's got 0-0 written all over it.
Yeah.
Whereas with Moyes, you've seen his defensive masterclasses he's done under West Ham. And I still that vividly remember the game last year where they came to the Amex under Moyes and taught us a lesson.
Horrible.
I also remember the season before that, I think it was the season before that when they came and they were the most abject side I've sort of ever watched. They just didn't care. So who knows what he's going to do with this Everton team? It's not a particularly impressive Everton team at all. Like, again, back to what I said earlier, we outgun this Everton team. We have better quality players in, frankly, every single position. We should beat them. We should beat them. And suddenly then you're looking at, again, that really nice run of form before you go into what I think is a really horrid little run of games. Forest away, Chelsea. Before you have a sort of a run of fraudulent derbies against Southampton, Bournemouth, Fulham, City, Villa, Palace.
Yeah, horrible run of games. The ones that we all proclaimed we should get loads of points from in December and got nothing.
Yeah. Oh, Bournemouth, right. We won. We got 3 points.
We did. I think that's about it, really. We have Chelsea Wolves tomorrow, and then we're done for the game week, I think, right? So we've then got just the run up to Everton next week. How nice is it to have a 3 o'clock Saturday kickoff, by the way? Like very nice to have it in the Premier League. So we will be back next Sunday, probably sometime. I don't know when. Fulham and Manchester United play at 7 p.m. Sunday, by the way, next week. Like, what kind of abomination is that?
Well, we've got two 8 p.m. games against Chelsea.
Yeah, hate that as well, by the way. I was hoping to go to the FA Cup one because we couldn't make it to the other one because it was that Friday night game. And then they put that one as a freaking late kickoff as well. And I was like, well, I'll just go F myself. Just can't get down there. Fridays, it took us 5.5 hours almost to get to Southampton on the Friday. And we were like, yeah, we're not going to do a Friday night again. And then getting home at like 3:30 in the morning just sucks. Like, I don't want to do that. Like, it's just, I don't like, I was looking at our resale history because obviously we just put it up for resale, and like it's literally every single one is like 7:45, 8 p.m., 8 p.m., 7:45, and it's just like that's like it makes you realize just how many we're getting changed to late kickoffs because we just can't attend most of them, and it's very shit, honestly.
Yeah, the train situation after that is just I can imagine a morbid affair.
Whether you drive or train, like if you train, you almost definitely are, unless we get lucky, we're not going to get back from London to the Midlands. It's just not, the last train is at like 11. So like you've got to then try and get from the Amex to Brighton to London before 11 o'clock, which is like a 50-50. Like you just don't know. Right.
Well, I think the biggest mistake is living in the Midlands there. That's the major issue.
Yes. It's good for away games though. Everywhere's quite close compared to being in Brighton.
True. Yeah. Away day specialist.
Yeah, it is. All right. We'll be back next week for Everton chat. Hopefully it's as happy as this one. But we will see you all soon.
Cheers all.